He's an excellent artillery radar. Try and behave for the cameras, you know. He has one white sock, one paw, you know, so that just seemed to be his name. And I'm hoping to have him trained up as a demining dog eventually. Of course, what I do is incredibly dangerous. I turn Russian munitions into drone bombs. You know, it's like returning litter the Russians leave around. I've been cluster bombed quite a few times, and it's not pleasant. I came to stop Putin initially. Crimea. Zelensky said it himself, that this war started with Crimea and it will end with Crimea.
You're watching UATV English. My name is Anna Nichenko. Hello and welcome. Today I have two guests, brave hearts. So Mark or BigMac and One Sock. Hello, One Sock.
He's enjoying the cool of the floor.
Absolutely, of this studio.
Who's a good boy?
Mark, I'll ask you what you're doing. You're a Mavic pilot, you're a deminer, you have lots of great jobs, and we will talk about you, but in some seconds, in some minutes, few minutes. Let's begin from One Sock. Where is he from? Why are you together?
One Sock is a Kherson Silbaka. I found him on the streets in January when it was still, even in Kherson, it was very cold then, and I picked him up, and he has this one white paw, and I just said, I can't let you wander the streets with your one sock on. And yeah, you know, that was it. We've been together ever since.
Why you called him One Sock? Because of his white leg?
Yeah, he has. Come on, mate. Try and behave for the cameras, you know. He has one white sock, one paw, you know, so that just seemed to be his name. And yeah, he's been with us since. He comes to work with us. He's an excellent artillery radar. He knows when the shell's coming for us. And no one can sneak up on position at night with him. He hardly ever barks, but if someone he doesn't know the smell of is coming, he'll let us know. So he's a very useful dog, and I'm hoping to have him trained up as a demining dog eventually. We do some small training already, you know. He knows the smell of TNT and few explosives, you know, but he's still a puppy. As you can see, all he wants to do is play at the moment.
I think that animals, dogs, it's like some kind of inspiration for soldiers, for volunteers, for people who are fighting against Russian invasion. It's like help, emotional help.
It's good. He's definitely my emotional support animal, you know. I don't have a wife or any children. So, you know, when the guys finish work, they normally call their families. For me, I take my dog for a walk, and that's how I cope with what we have to do and what happens to us on a daily basis. So, yeah. And, you know, the whole platoon loves him. He's our mascot, basically.
If it is possible, just ask One Sock to sit down in front of you.
Maybe
he will...
Sit. Be a good boy.
Maybe
sit.
He'll pose on camera.
Sit. Stop it. Good boy.
Good boy, yeah, he's relaxing. While he's relaxing, I would like to ask you about what you're doing. So you're a Mavic pilot, you do mining, you do lots of great things for Ukraine.
I have dealt with one or two mines, but what I principally do is I turn Russian munitions into drone bombs.
How?
Well, I mean, I will provide you with a couple of clips of work I do. I mean, the Kherson Military Authority, thank you to them, by the way, gave us some fireman's jaws of life the other day. And when an Uragan cassetta cluster munition hits the ground, it gets all bent up. And this is the best thing to peel it without any heat or sparks. And then, you know, we take the cassette out, unscrew the fuse, fit in a new electronic detonation device that we make ourselves, and give it to our FPV teams who deliver it back. So, yeah, you know, it's like returning litter the Russians leave around, you know? And, yeah, I've been cluster bombed quite a few times, and it's not pleasant, so it is quite nice to return the favour, even if it's one bomb at a time.
But tell about this just with British humour. We can see that you're from United Kingdom, because this British humour, I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, it's you know, you've got to have a sense of humour in this job and not make a drama out of everything. You know, of course, what I do is incredibly dangerous, but you know, someone needs to do it, and seem to be the right temperament for working with explosives. You know, you need to be steady and calm. If you do the wrong thing, you die. You might kill people around you. And if you make your bombs wrong, you might kill your FPV team. So for me, there's a great level of responsibility with it. But it turns out I have an aptitude for it, you know? And I have excellent teachers. My officers, my officer is my main teacher, and he's really very good at the job, you know? He doesn't speak English, I don't speak Ukrainian, but with monkey see, monkey do, and a little Google Translate, we work fine.
But what's about your communication during, I don't know, combats, when it's really, you have lack of time?
I mean, some of the guys I work with, when I go to the forward positions, speak English. You know, if a Russian FPV is coming towards our position, I understand enough Ukrainian, Shuzhik, Russian words to understand that it's time to run away. You know, so we get by. You know, I've been in Ukraine for nearly 14 months this time round since I came last year. So, yeah, I have enough experience to communicate with the guys for work at least. I wish I did speak more Ukrainian, but I've had a lot of contusions from artillery, so learning a new language had to take a back seat. But we'll get there.
All these contusions were during the combats, yeah?
Mm-hmm, yeah. I think the worst one was we had a 152 artillery shell hit the room we were in, but it was North Korean, so it didn't go off properly. But enough of it did to give me a fairly nasty contusion, but I've recovered. It just meant that I was half as intelligent as I normally am, and there was no way to learn a new language at this time. But I was still able to do more basic tasks. I could fetch, I can carry, I can watch for the Russians, I can listen for boats and stuff, because in Kherson, what we're principally doing is either drone operations or amphibious warfare. So lots of raids on the islands with the boats, them and us. So yeah, we were Terabona, but now we're Marines. It's quite funny how we're doing exactly the same. We were doing marine work as Terabona, but now they've called us Marines. Everyone thinks we're cool all of a sudden, so that's nice.
That's really nice. But why are you here in Ukraine? When was your decision made to come here?
I got to Ukraine March 10th, 22, so two and a half weeks after the big war started. I'll be honest, I'd watched stuff about Maidan on Vice, YouTube channel, back in 2014. But I honestly didn't know a great deal about Ukraine. There's no point in pretending I did. I came to stop Putin initially. You know, I did some military training when I was younger. I never completed it. But I never agreed with Iraq or Afghanistan. You know, my country has never participated in a war in my lifetime that I saw as morally right. This is, to me, very black and white. There's a dictator and a tyrant trying to invade a country that's striving to achieve its own independence. And he needs to be stopped. If we didn't stop him in Ukraine, Poland and Europe would be next with Russian power and influence leaning on it, so I came to stop him. Now I'm here to help build a new Ukraine. You know, that's the future is what I'm here for now. And we'll win sooner or later, but yeah.
You know, you say stop Putin, but it's really a great goal. Not only stop Putin, yes, but protect Ukraine, protect your country, protect Europe. But still, there is so many Russian propaganda programs. And many people in Europe and USA, they sometimes say, oh, I don't know, I am tired of this information about war. I don't know whether I should support Ukraine or not. How should and who should explain to people all over the world, for they realized that this war, it's not only Ukrainian war.
No, it's not. One of the things I said when I first came was if Russia wins in Ukraine, it will move the entire global power balance. I believe that if Kyiv fell and Putin got to the border with Poland and Romania, NATO would have to fully engage. And at that moment, China would probably cat's paw Taiwan. and everything would change. And perhaps some countries in Europe would find out what it's like to be not so first world anymore. So it's as simple as that. And I'm British. I don't like communism. I don't like fascism. We stand up to tyrants. Simple as that. We've made our mistakes in the past. We haven't always been the nicest people, but that was more in the wooden ships and muskets days, you know? So for me, dictators need to be fought. Simple as that.
There are common values between United Kingdom and between Ukraine. We also hate communism. We hate fascism. We don't like Putin.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, you know, I'd like to ask you about your work, your job, more details. I'd like to ask about more details. FPV or Mavic pilot. What exactly you doing and what's your ordinary day in combat?
For most of this year, I was part of a Limbo FPV team, which is an FPV team in Kherson for my battalion. I can fly a Mavic competently. I understand how to fly an FPV, but our missions are fairly long distance. So there requires a lot of communication then. So I've never quite blossomed into a fully fledged FPV pilot. But I took an interest in the operation of the bombs and how to make them. And now mostly that's what I do these days. I'm sort of our company's chief sapper. So I work very closely with the company commander, and day in, day out, I take apart cluster munitions and artillery shells and anti-tank mines, and using various bits of chemistry and electronic magic, I turn them into drone bombs. And that's pretty much what I do now. The thing that I don't think a lot of people understand with drones is that we work all the time. When I was in the infantry, we'd go to a position for 3, 5, 10 days, and then we'd have kind of an equal amount of time afterwards to rest, clean your clothes and stuff. I get about 2 days off a month in drones, and we pray for bad weather. If it rains and it's really windy, it's like, hooray, I can wash my clothes today and go to the ATV, you know? So, but it's useful work, you know. We're achieving a lot of results. We destroy a lot of the enemy. We destroy a lot of their equipment. And I also have like my own second job, which is, as there are not so many English speakers in our battalion, and I have a YouTube channel, so I'm sort of a little bit famous. I engage with all the NGOs, charities, private donators, and not only raise funds, but coordinate the purchasing and the logistical transport. And, you know, at first it was like we were plastering cracks. You know, we've lost some thermal drones. I'm really desperately trying to get another thermal drone to just cover our immediate necessities. But now I'm able to push things forward. You know, I brought the first thermal camera FPVs to our battalion. And funny enough, the government sent 30 a week after that, which is kind of nice, you know. I felt a little bit cheated, you know, like they stole my glory, but we're very grateful. And now we own the night on the Dnipro. The orcs thought they could walk around like they own the place, and they can't anymore. And that was a result of my work and the help I have from my volunteers and donators. So I'm quite proud of that achievement. One of our guys took out a speedboat the other day. Have a clip if you'd like to use it.
Okay, and you know, when you say that you're proud of your work, we say that we are really thankful for your work, because of everything that you're doing, protecting Ukraine, fighting against Russian invasion, it really matters.
Thank you.
It really, all the Ukrainians are really thankful. You can't even imagine how much we are, because first of all, yes, I understand that you're protecting also Europe, but first of all, you're protecting Ukrainians and peaceful nation, peaceful people. So thank you from UATV, from Ukraine.
You're welcome. Best job I ever had.
You know, I'd like to ask you, victory, result. You're talking about results of your work, and the best result of your work is victory of Ukraine. How you imagine it?
Crimea. Zelensky said it himself, that this war started with Crimea and it will end with Crimea. Krinky was a mess. I'm glad that general's fired, and I'm glad we abandoned Krinky. It was a terrible idea. But there's another place next to Krinky called Aleshki City. If we take Aleshki City, we're not so far from the neck of Crimea. If we can cut off the neck of Crimea, and now Ukraine over the last week has developed its own ballistic missiles, so we have something with a real punch now. If we can blow the bridge, I mean, we've already pretty much destroyed the Navy in the Black Sea. If we can blow the bridge, cut off the neck of Crimea, and perhaps have a large amphibious operation to take Sevastopol, for instance, deny the Russians use of their naval bases, what use do they have for Crimea? And then they have a real problem on their hands because Crimea doesn't have much of its own water supply. And there's 2 million Russian, I assume mostly Russian civilians there. So, you know, of course, Ukraine isn't, you know, if we've taken it, Ukraine's not going to let them die of thirst. But, well, Russia's going to have to sue for peace then. Taking the Donbass back is incredibly difficult and costly because of the nature of the terrain. Low fields, high roads. It's an artilleryman and machine gunner's dream. You know, it's very, very costly. But I think we can do Crimea. And now, well, our brilliant new general has invaded Russia and taken Kursk. So, you know, Russia has to start moving men from the east and from the south to deal with this. So, yeah, I think victory is possible, but it all hinges on Crimea. You know, without Crimea, Russia has far less reason to want Ukraine, far less use for Ukraine. You know, Crimea is the ports, and ports are everything.
By the way, would you like to visit free Ukrainian Crimea?
Yes, I would, you know. I think if I'm a good enough soldier, maybe I can get myself a cheap oligarch mansion afterwards, you know. That would be nice, you know, little beachfront property.
By the way, where you visited, you're in Kherson now, and what regions you have already visited except Kherson?
Well, I was in 1st Battalion, the Legion, in 22, and we were in Kharkiv Oblast then, in between Stary Saltiv and Pecheniki along the Donets. It's beautiful up there. It's like the south of France. It's some of the nicest oak forests I've ever been in. There's a little town called Moldova we were in for a while, and I think I'd quite like a little holiday home there. It's just very, very pretty. I visited Kiev several times. Love it, fantastic city. One of my friends is the manager of Dnipro ice hockey, and I visited him in Odessa on my last holiday. It was a little cold and the weather was a little bad then, but I got to see some of Odessa. We both have dogs, so, you know, there's a lot of dog walking around the town. I've been to Ternopil, which is one of the places where foreign volunteers come to sign up, and it's Ternopil. I have to say, one of the positive hangovers Ukraine seems to have from the USSR is a lot of trees, even amongst the concrete apartments. Inside this area, it's like a little forest garden, and people plant vegetables and flowers and maintain it. And that's one of my favorite things about Ukraine, the amount of trees you have here. And you've never tasted a peach until you've had a Kherson peach, you know? That's, yeah, one of my favorite things.
And on the one hand, beautiful land, beautiful country. On the other hand, it was much better before Russian invasion.
Absolutely,
and
sure.
You visited lots of regions. You saw all the atrocities Russian had done. And speaking about Kherson region, there were lots of awful things that Russia
I know some horror stories that probably aren't suitable for camera. I also know, would you like me to tell you a little Ukrainian folk story?
Yes.
There was an old man, and back in the day, he'd been part of the Red Army, an old Ukrainian man. And he went to Afghanistan, where he did and saw terrible things. And then he returned to Ukraine and lived in Kherson. He worked as a mechanic. His favorite thing was to go fishing. When the Russian invasion happened, he didn't want to believe it, but eventually he realized what was happening. Eventually, there was a curfew, and people weren't allowed to leave their homes. And eventually, they lifted the curfew, and the first thing the old man wanted to do was go fishing at this quarry that gets flooded in the winter. The old man got to the quarry and realized that the Russians had dynamite fished it with anti-tank mines and killed all his fish, and that was the final straw. So he went home, walked past the Russian checkpoint, not saying a word, put 2 bottles of vodka in his bag and his mechanic's hammer, and went back to the checkpoint where there were 3 Russian soldiers. "Comrades, comrades," he said, "if I cannot fish, let me drink with you. I was a soldier in my day." And like being badly disciplined Russian soldiers as normal, they drank the vodka. First one bottle, and then another. And then the vodka is gone. And one Russian soldier says to the old man, "Hey, old man, you got any more vodka?" And the old man reaches into his bag and grabs his hammer and goes, "No, but I have something else will give you even more a headache." And bish, bash, bop. He killed all 3 Russian soldiers with a hammer and then hopped on a bike that they had there that they'd already stolen and cycled off. He now is apparently in Lviv. No one stopped him, even with the blood on him, because it's just an old man who's fallen off his bike, and what harm can he do? Don't mess with old people. You never know what they've done in the past. So yeah, that's a true modern Ukrainian folk story. That we stayed in this guy's house. We left it very tidy. Very tidy indeed.
I agree with you. You know, we were a peaceful nation. We didn't even think that we can kill someone, and Russians made us to fight, to kill, to protecting our land.
The guys I know, I think because of films and stuff, people have this perception that a real killer of a soldier will be this kind of macho, aggressive, Navy SEAL kind of figure. I know guys who'll blow up a speedboat full of Russians or a house full of Russians and then go home and call their daughter. Daughter doesn't know what dad did today. She just needs to know dad loves her, I find it a little overwhelming sometimes how composed they can be. But you're protecting your land, you're protecting your families. Everyone knows what will happen if the Russians get past us to their families. So awful things have happened in Kherson. One of my squad leaders has a beautiful young wife. Her best friend was assaulted, is probably the appropriate word to use, and murdered by the Russians. She was a Russian speaker. She thought they'd be okay with her. They weren't.
They were, as they said, protecting Russian-speaking people. Yeah.
I hold on to that when I have my moments of feeling merciful, So yeah, it's if you act like orcs, you will get treated like orcs. It's as simple as that.
What's the most disgusting for you in behavior of Russian army?
I find this one difficult to talk about. There was a little girl who used to wave at us when we were driving past in Kharkiv, and there was nothing military near that area. And nothing, like maybe a car with some soldiers drives up this road 1-2 times a day, but they just cluster bomb this entire area, and we saw the aftermath. That's always, I don't like talking about that, but it's just I had to go to Kherson Hospital a little while ago. I had an insect fly in my ear while I was asleep. Woke up, thought there was a drone outside my main window. I was like, why is the buzzing? And there's an insect in my ear, and I couldn't get it out, so I went to the hospital. And there's just so many children and old people wounded in there, and they shell the whole city. Just sometimes, obviously, they're using drones. They're trying to target military facilities. Sometimes I'm pretty sure they just get an order to attack the Ukrainians, and they just point the guns vaguely west and give us 10 rounds, indiscriminate. And it's all the time, But one of the things I'm quite proud of Ukraine is that the average Kherson grandmother is more hardened to artillery fire than every single NATO soldier. And I've seen some foreign volunteers come to Kherson and be awfully scared at what we go through, calling me like, "Mac, please, can I have your extra body armor?" I'm like, "Mate, look out the window. Is the babushka still selling watermelon? Yeah? Well, shut up then,
This British humor really helps to survive. I agree, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking about such kind of atrocities, I think that we can't even imagine how Putin, Kremlin, all who are in Kremlin should be punished.
I think Ukraine should bring the death penalty back, especially for high corruption and treachery. I think you should. Sadly, I'm not a lawmaker, but what Slobodan Milosevic and that endless, never-ending trial at The Hague, why waste the money? Bullets are cheap,
So you believe that Putin, Russians will be punished.
Yeah,
Do you believe
I
this?
hope so, but sadly, yeah. I mean, I think if we take Crimea back, they'll turn on him. I think that's what will happen. The loss of Crimea is something that the Russian public and even the military won't be able to just, you know, it won't be like what they said in Kharkiv as, oh, we were just making a tactical retreat. It's like, no, you weren't, you lost, you know? They won't be able to pretend that anymore. We've almost destroyed the Navy. If we take Crimea back, they won't be able to whitewash this anymore. They won't be able to cover it up. It'll be there for everyone to see. And I think Russia will turn on him then. But, yeah, let's see what the future holds. You never know. No one expected the Kharkiv counteroffensive. No one expected us to invade Kursk. Who knows what this war could hold in the future?
Who knows, yeah, what will be next. Now, we had interview with your friend Harley, and he said that it's one of the goals to kill of the Russians, to kill military men, yes, but not only military men. It's maybe the biggest goal to kill all the civilians. They want just land, not people. They want this land.
Yeah.
You agree with this?
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, they've been just indiscriminate, basically. And, yeah, you know, it's very fascist. They want to clear the people out, take the land and have what the Germans would call breathing space, you know, back in the day. Not the modern Germans, of course, the Nazi regime. So, yeah, it's funny when you get military experts talking on the television. You know, 10 years ago, the opinion of military experts that we'll never see war like this again, that we'll never see tank on tank, that another country won't ever try and conquer another country's land. And well, here we are. I think Putin just went a little bit insane in his old age and decided that he wants to be, you know, he wants statues like Stalin as well, you know. He wants to be the Russian strongman of this century. But, yeah, it's not going so well for him, you know. 3 days to Kiev, and here we are.
2 years and a half.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And 500,000 or so Russian dead.
Absolutely. And many foreigners are here.
Yes.
Do you communicate with other foreigners from United Kingdom, and who communicate with?
I make a point on my channel to tell people, if you want to come and serve Ukraine, fine, but don't think you can just email me and join my unit. I don't need your drama. For every 10 people who come to fight in Ukraine, 9 probably go home after a short while because they can't actually handle, and most human beings shouldn't be able to handle, the reality of peer-on-peer warfare. You know, no, even if you've been to Iraq or Afghanistan, and I know soldiers who've served honorably and bravely in Afghanistan, come to Ukraine, been up against a whole barrage of grads with cassetters or thermobaric rockets from the TOS-1, and gone, no, too much for me, I'm going home, you know? So, yeah, I admire the bravery of people who come. I especially admire the bravery of civilian volunteers as well, because they don't get combat pay, and there's some really brave civilian volunteers over here. I admire guys who've been and fought and done an honourable period of service, but sadly, there's a lot of time wasters here, you know, and maybe less, but in the early days of the war, it was, you know, I was at, on March 10th, I arrived in Ukraine in 22. On the 13th was the Yaroviv caliber missile attack. There were 1,000 legionnaires or want-to-be legionnaires there that day. After the caliber missile attack, by lunchtime the next day, 700 had gone. I'm like, no, it's not going to be easy shooting orcs in Kyiv. The chances are you're going to die from a missile or artillery or an airstrike before you even see a Russian. That's statistically more likely. So it does take a lot of courage, and I have an endless amount of respect for the guys who've stuck out the service. And I've lost a lot of international friends fighting in that war. Sadly, the patch of flags near the Maidan grows thicker and thicker, and many of my friends are in there already, are represented by a flag there already, many of them. I'd start to list their names, but I'd probably cry.
It's really hard to lose friends, especially when you understand that these friends are really brave, they're protecting another country, the other country here. It's really hard, but how to go on after such kind of losses?
Vengeance. vengeance. Yeah, you killed my friends, so that makes it easier for me to do my job, you know? No one I know really, none of the good guys I know really came just wanting to kill. They wanted to drive Putin back, to protect Ukraine, to serve as an honorable soldier. So, yeah, and they were killed because of the ambitions of a dictator. So, yeah, you know, from all over the world, you know, I think Americans and British perhaps get the most press, but Andrew Huage, came all the way from Sri Lanka to serve in Ukraine. He arrived, I had to leave Ukraine in 22 because I got Lyme's disease, and the hospitals were a mess at this time. So I went back to England to get some medical treatment, came back after 5 weeks. So my second time at Yaraviv, the recruitment center there's this Sri Lankan guy next to me, and he's like, you know, he had such a journey getting here. He was held in a detention center for refugees in Poland, convinced the Polish police that he was genuinely going to Ukraine to fight, and he had service as special forces in Sri Lanka, got into Ukraine, arrived wearing the kind of clothes that you'd expect a refugee to wear, and ended up becoming basically the commander of Charlie Company in the 1st Battalion. He was one of the best and bravest soldiers and kind and humble men I've ever met. And he was killed in the fighting in Luhansk last year. And yeah, that was a difficult one for me. But just before I came back, he was killed. No, just after I came back, he was killed. But yeah, as I said, it makes it easier. It doesn't make me want to give up. It gives me resolve to continue. You know, the only way this is going to stop is we win. Simple as that. After
the victory, Ukrainian victory, what will you do together with One Sock, your life?
I think I'll stay in Ukraine. I'm actually planning to go to a lawyer. I'm not sure if it's passed yet, but apparently dual citizenship is now a possibility. I believe it's going to pass soon, and I would like to stay in Ukraine. I've come to love the country. And if I'm be completely pragmatic, it's a lot cheaper to get a nice house here than it is in England, you know. And I quite like the idea of somewhere by a river with my own little fruit tree orchard, little bit of forest, maybe do a bit of hunting, maybe do a bit of fishing, and work with demining. Ukraine is going to need skilled EOD, UXO people for decades and decades after this. I mean, even in England, we're still finding a German bomb from the Second World War once a week, you know, especially in places like Coventry, Liverpool, London. So there's a lot of work to do that, and it requires dedicated people who have the bravery and competence to do it. And without wanting to blow my own trumpet, it appears I am rather skilled at working with explosives. So, and it doesn't make my heart rate go up or my hand shake. So I'll stay and do that. And, you know, the Dnipro, after Novakharkova, has so many mines that Goshwat down. And if we want to open those shipping lanes up, that will be an ongoing job. So, yeah, there's plenty of useful work to do for this country. Keep farmers and people who want to walk in the forest and children who want to play in the field safe, you know? So for me, I guess the war won't stop. There will always be a continuation of this. But that's okay. Best job I ever had.
Thanks a lot, Mark, for what you're doing. Thank you for this interview. One Sock, thank you.
He's sleeping a little bit. He's asleep now.
He's relaxing, yes.
Yeah, he doesn't care for the cameras. He's his own man.
Absolutely, but he is doing his best job, also helping you, inspiring you at least. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Anna. And thank you to UATV.
It was UATV English. Brave hearts. See you.